on to the next question. We're going to first off start this question with our newly added segment, Mic Check. So as everyone knows, I'll be putting in some interesting facts about this topic. Now, for those who are listeners, you know that I'm an environmental scientist, and I'll be, we've been talking about a lot of topics today, but I'll be specifically talking about climate change for this Mic Check segment. So there's two articles that I found which were really interesting. The first was by World Food Programme, and it's essentially talking about this year. So it's titled Climate Crisis, COP27 and Other Things to Watch in 2022. So saying that how these next 12 months will be critical for tackling climate change. We've seen whether it's loss and damage to vulnerable communities, whether we've seen impacts such as rising sea levels or hotter days in countries where we shouldn't really be seeing this. Essentially the science does not lie. And there's even another one, which is the other article for today, which was published by the United Nations, and it's titled, and I think this is very important, Why 2022 Will Matter for Climate Action. We've seen things like COP26, and whether you're a fan who agree that COP26 did justice or whether it's just a whole load of empty promises, it was very impactful. And I think one of the things that definitely that I took away from watching COP26 was, I'm not sure if everyone remembers, but there was I don't remember the country that did the presentation, but one of the world leaders that was there, he's from a small island, and he did his presentation in the water. Hopefully you'll have a picture of this in the corner of your screens. But yeah, he did his presentation in the water, and he was addressing them saying that, this is what he's dealing with. And I guess essentially when you're up against stuff like that, we've previously had an episode about environmental anxiety and the things that can come about from that. But, we I guess want to highlight as a podcast, and we've highlighted it before, that there's no need to let this be the end. We can still make change, we can still make action. And these two articles, they go into a lot of detail about the different events that are happening this year. So if you are interested in climate change or the climate crisis and you want to know a bit more, the links will be in the description, so you can check them out there. But essentially, Mandekh, the question that we want to ask you is, what are some ways that individuals can feel that they can make a change? And I think especially like you highlighted in the last question, as students, sometimes we feel like we actually can't be a part of the change process. So I guess we just want to know, what are some ways that, whether it's specifically towards students or in a more general sense, what are some ways that we can feel like we can make change?
Mm-hmm. So I'll respond to this in two distinct ways. So from the first is from the perspective of somebody who is in a general way, like managing the space, right? So I'm talking about lectures, I'm talking about you leading young people, you are the employer of somebody else, you're a manager of somebody else, you're in a position of power and authority in this space. Is recognizing the power that you possess and actively working to address forms of injustice. And I don't need this to be some sort of like holier than thou, large scale injustice that's happened, but recognizing moments where perhaps somebody's voice isn't amplified or somebody is inadvertently silenced. And so if you're in a meeting with somebody, recognizing that, hey, this person's been ignored for the last 20 minutes, has been trying to speak up, using your authority to say, or using your power, privilege at that point to say, I'd like to pass the mic over to Yashika. Yashika, you mentioned something earlier, and facilitating that and having that control and ownership. And I think often, whether it's professional spaces or in learning spaces, there's this unnecessary sort of like competition that arises where everybody's like everyone for themselves, like I'm fending for myself. And that's not necessarily helpful, right? When we're looking to address issues and challenges that fundamentally impact us all. From the perspective of the individual me, about ways that individual can feel that they make change, or even as a student, the one advice I would say to any student or young person as a whole, and I say this to young people that I work with in my charity, Eastside Youth, is that there's no sort of tick box activity to being able to speak your mind, or to feel that there's nothing that is going to stop you from being seen as an expert in your own experiences. Like you've experienced it, that makes you the expert in that, you know what I mean? And you don't need to be validated by somebody external to do that, even if society has these mechanisms or metrics that mean that only particular people can speak on particular subjects. And it's finding people who value your opinions, who acknowledge your expertise, and utilizing that to propel you to be able to connect with others who are doing similar work or are passionate about similar issues. And that takes time. And I think for me, as somebody, like I mentioned, I grew up in an area called Scarborough in Toronto, which was, I think, distinct in the sense that is a high immigrant community. You kind of all relied on each other. But growing up for me, I would see people who I'm like, oh, I want to be like you, or I want to do something like you. And then not feeling that they may be supporting me in the way that I thought they would, because I'm like, oh, we should be helping each other out, right? Like I'm coming to you being like, please be my tutor, or please be something to me. And then they'd be like, oh, well, you can just go online and apply. And I'm like, that's a bit rubbish, right? So I think that we need to be able to break down the barriers, to break down the assumptions that supporting one another, regardless of who you are, where you're from, shouldn't be seen as necessarily nepotism or favoritism at all points, right? Sometimes it's like if somebody messages you to say, hey, I'm really interested in this job that you're doing, I really want to get into those spaces, have an informal coffee. Like it's not going to help, it's not going to hurt you to impart knowledge or information that's going to make it less difficult for the person to go forward in their future, right? And that is a change on such a small scale, right? And we're not even talking about the wicked problems of solving those changes, because those are complex. But it's being open and vulnerable to say that other people have knowledges that you don't possess. How do you connect with that? How do you learn from them? How do you share that? Yeah, I think that's the best way. It's very like personal for me when it comes to individuals feeling like they can make change, because I find it really heartbreaking when people think I have to have my degree in order to do X, Y, and Z, or I have to have like 10 years of experience before anybody values my opinion, where I'm like, no, I want to hear what you have to say right now.
Oh, that's so true. I think even, while you're talking about, I was saying that that's so true to students in general. We've seen, especially if we're bringing it back to climate change as an example, young people being very active and being activists, and whether that's with, they're, 13 years old or very young, or whether they're, in their 30s, they're people that are doing a lot of work as young people. And I think, like you said, that key thing of, you don't need to be a specialist. You don't need to be, a well-read, multiple degrees person to make a change. You just have to be an individual with the will to do it, and the ability to that I can do it because I see the need for change. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's that unwavering passion. It's that exactly. Unwavering passion that I think we need to value on par with other forms of like metrics or tick box activities that we view as valuable within society.
No, that's so true, 100%. But I'm now going to pass on to Yashika for our last official question before we go on to our new segment, Passing the Mic.
Right. So yeah, thank you so much for that, Mandekh. So my question is a bit of a difficult one. So obviously we've got all these crazy global challenges that we're trying to solve. What are the steps to, finding those solutions? I'm sorry if this is a bit of a big question, but what do you think is like very important to solving those solutions?
Mm-hmm. Well, that is a massive one. And honestly, if I had a solution, I don't think there would be a degree anymore, to be honest. I think that's it. We solved it, move on. I'd like to say first and foremost, it's important that as individuals, as a collective, we take care of our mental health and well-being when it comes to talking about global issues. I think it can be incredibly overwhelming. It can be, like, oh my God, there's nothing we can do. We're in despair and kind of like hide away, which is, to be fair at times. In order for us to work towards these big challenges and seeing whether they're linked together or just feeling empowered enough to do so, I think The first step is recognizing that everything you do, every positive thing you do makes a difference. And I think often we are quick to highlight within our society, whether it's on the news or on social media, the big actions, right? The big gestures. We want young people who are like Greta. We want people who are, I don't know, like 18 years old with like tech companies who are like solving like amazing things. You know what I mean? But without recognizing that the day-to-day mental transformations are incredibly important. And I think that is a cultural shift. We need to understand that in order for all these massive changes to be sustained, there needs to be a culture behind it that values it simultaneously. And we've progressed massively as a collective, right? As a community, as a society, as a whole, about our views about particular members within our community, our kinfolk, anything like that. And so those, I think, recognizing that it's small steps towards massive change is important. And that doesn't negate the fact that these big changes can also happen simultaneously. It's moving away from this dichotomy of like, it has to be big or it's nothing, or it's really small and it's relevant, right? One good example I can think of is that I was having a chat with a friend of mine back home in Canada, because they're going through extreme like cold weather alerts right now, and creating these backpack kits, like this essential survival kit for rough sleepers or unhoused kin within the Toronto area, and included like sleeping bags and money and cigarettes and hand sanitizer and things like that. And on the larger scale, is that going to eradicate homelessness in Toronto? No, but what it will do is ensure that somebody is safe on that night, and creating a momentum to say, hey, we are recognizing this is an issue within our community. This is not a fringe group. They're not silent. They're not hidden. We're talking about it. We're talking about this. We're raising the issue. We're amplifying this concern so that those we elected recognize that this is not just an issue that you can hide behind closed door. We're seeing you. Right. And that is something tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. No, thank you so much for that. Yeah. Everything okay? Sorry. Yeah, no, totally agree with everything that you said there. I think identifying the issue and acknowledging that it exists is the first step, definitely, to solving it. So, no, that's great.
Yeah, so we've now come to our newly added segment, Passing the Mic, where, as you, our listeners and watchers, know, we give the mic to our guest speakers to ask us a question that they have prepared for us. So I'm going to hand over to Mandy to ask us the question that she's prepared for us. So if you could let us know what your question is today, please.
Really excited about this segment. So this question is something that I love asking other people as a whole. So my question to you both is, what is something you know that you feel is a valuable tidbit of knowledge others should know about? Not restricting you in terms of topic, in terms of issue, or where you got this knowledge from, but just any kind of valuable tidbit of knowledge you think others should know about.
So I think I'm gonna go through, because when I was thinking about this question, I wasn't sure of which one to go with, because there's three. There's one that I know university students should know, and I'll go with that one first. So I know my sister told me about this during lockdown. But for anyone who's got pots, if you've got a pot and it's got like a hole, like on the handle, there's like a hole. Especially like smaller pots, it's got like the long handle, it's got the hole. Yeah, I didn't know that that's actually, if you're using like a spoon or cutlery for when you're cooking, you can actually put the cutlery there. So I had no idea about this. And I was just like, and hopefully you'll see a picture of this, so you'll get what I'm saying. But yeah, essentially I didn't know that was something that you could do, but apparently it is. But myself, me and my brother are huge history buffs. So both, whether that's like history of stuff like music or history of stuff in general. So I'm going to give one about music, because music is one of my passions. So one fact about music that my brother told me was that James Brown, so if anyone doesn't know James Brown, he's a musician. And he is essentially the most sampled artist of all time. He has been sampled twice as many times as the second most sampled artist. So that's a bit of music knowledge there. But on a more history, I guess, basis, one of the things that I learned, I think it was towards the end of last year, which I had no idea about, was this word called tel, which is TEL. And essentially it means, in historical terms, it was essentially when there would be a town, specific, most of the time it was in the desert. So places like Tel Aviv is an example, where essentially you had these cities where people would live, whether it was due to environmental issues like weather or natural disasters, or whether it was just due to, someone took over the land, took all the resources, got rid of everyone who lived there and left. Essentially, tels are cities that are basically built on top of cities. So they're cities that throughout the ages, you can essentially like go back through history, through the soil, and see like, this group of civilization lived there, and then something happened, they left, and then another city was built on top, and then they left, and then another city was built on top. So when I learned about it, they were saying that, you can see, I don't remember which country he was talking about, but this person was saying that you can go to, I don't remember the country, but hopefully if it appears on the screen, that's the country. But essentially, they were saying that if you go to this country, you can see like loads of like hills in like the middle of nowhere, and you'll see like a massive hill and then like flat plain and then a massive hill. And he was saying that that's essentially a tel. You'll see like that, if you looked at that hill, you could see the history of that area. And yeah, when I learned about that, I was just like, wow, this is actually something that I never thought about, but we see it in our day-to-day lives. But yeah, that would be my 3 pieces of knowledge that I think people hopefully will appreciate. But yeah, Yashika, what about you? What's your bit of tidbit knowledge?
Right, so I think I would probably want to talk about like my experiences like after uni. So students, some of you might be able to relate here. But so I think one thing that I've come to learn is that, well, you might find yourself in a situation or in a job, for example, that you might not want to do. It's not what you want to do long term. And I've definitely found myself in a job that I'm working in a lab at the moment, and it's not really what I want to do. But I think I managed to find that, like, I got myself stuck sort of in this job, even though it isn't what I wanted to do, but I just sort of settled there for a bit, and I'm still here, working this job in a lab as a laboratory operator. And I've only just begun to apply to jobs that I genuinely want to do. And I think it can be really disheartening sometimes when you've graduated and you've come out and you're looking at all these job prospects and not always getting a reply back, and and then getting rejected because you don't have enough experience and whatever else. And it was really disheartening for me, so much so that I just sort of stopped applying to things. I was just going to work, coming home, eating, sleeping, going to work, coming home, eating, sleeping, going into that routine. And I think recently I just realized, you know what? No, like, I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm not going to settle where I am simply because it's easy and, I don't have to do much or whatever else. I want to challenge myself. And so now I'm back on the bandwagon and I'm applying to all these jobs. And I think it's important for students and newly graduates to keep that fire going, like, do what you want to do and keep trying. And every time you get rejected, don't let it dishearten you, because that's what happened to me. And that's how I've now ended up like 2 months extra into this job that I didn't want to be in the first place. So I think, yeah, keep looking, keep applying. That's definitely an advice that I would give to anyone looking. But yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yashika. And key thing to add on to what Yashika was saying about jobs was just that we've had previous episodes where we've had people talking about their job experience. So please do check those out, because a lot of the advice that they do give is very key. In a previous episode, literally the episode before, we spoke with someone called Morgan, and he was saying that he spoke about his journey, and he was saying one of the things he learned was that when it comes to job opportunities or your career path, I guess, he was saying that don't think of things as like you're stepping off the path, or you're going backwards. You say, think of it more as like you're taking a side step. So you might not necessarily be going forward, but you're still developing, you're still doing things, and then you just need to wait until the opportunity of you're back on the path. So I guess think of it more like if it's a path, it's like you're going around. You might not necessarily be going on that straight route, but you're still working on things, you're still improving yourself. So if you do want to know more, please do check out those episodes. But yeah, we're now going to go on to everyone's favorite segment, the MC of the Month segment. And as always, I like to bring in amazing MCs. And for this episode, the MC of the month is Project Everyone. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what Project Everyone is, they're a non-for-profit communications company. They're made up of a team or teams of dedicated campaigners and communicators. And essentially the heart of what they do is making sure that I guess their mission is that we move towards a fairer, greener, and more just world by 2030. So they have a lot of work in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals, which we've previously spoken about in season 1. And essentially, I really like what their co-founder, director, and screenwriter said. They've got it on their website, and the quote goes like this: "To make things happen, you have to make things," which I clearly, links to what we were saying today about, you just have to have that passion, that will, and just make it happen. They do a lot of great work, so please do check out their website. They do a lot of, they have value a lot of things, and they've got it all here on their website. So some of these include, they value creativity to make audacious things possible. They value maximum impact for the global goals always. So ensuring that we do meet these targets for 2030, which is only eight years away. They value collaboration and great partners, and specifically talking about these great partners, they work a lot with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which already themselves do a lot of really good charitable work for people. So do please check out their website, Project Everyone. Who knows? We were talking about jobs today. They might have a job for you. So do check it out. There's lots of ways you can get involved. There's lots of things you can look up. And I've heard from, not necessarily from them, but people have worked with them before, that they do have a lot of video opportunities for people, especially young people, to get involved with, to highlight this need for change that we've been discussing today. But yeah, we've now officially come to the end of today's episode, and I want to say a huge thanks to Mandekh for coming onto the show. We really appreciate all the lessons you've taught us and all the wise wisdom you have shared with us. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me.
No, we really appreciated it. And I guess one thing before we let you go is we just want to say, I know you previously mentioned your charity. So if there's anyone, I guess, who wants to find out more information, or, would like to maybe even get involved, how could they do that? How could they go about doing that?
Yeah, so the charity is Eastside Youth. You can go on eastsideyouth.org.uk. We run programs for young persons, primarily in East London, focused on creating the everyday leader, is what we call them, leaders who create change in the everyday spaces. So have a look at it.
That's wonderful. No, thank you. So please do make sure you check that out, guys. If you liked today's episode, or if you liked any of our episodes, please like, comment, and subscribe is always appreciated, so you don't miss the next episode, and press that notification bell for the same reason. And feel free to check out our Patreon page, where we've got some exclusive content waiting for you guys as well. But that's a bye from me, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. Look after yourselves, and we will see you all in the next episode. Pick up the mic.